Let me begin with where you started off with regarding the application. This application within the 24 hours prior to the application, line 71 to 72, does it say it is within existing budgetary resources?
I do not see any language on within existing budgetary sources. It mandates the controlling authority, which in this case would be the executive of the department in the state, to handle the notice. And presumably, public notice, I'm not sure how much fiscal note there would be on that. It also has been provided on the the website to the extent they have one. So I don't see anything about existing budgetary resources in there, but also not sure what kind of fiscal note you'd have for that kind of notice. So.
Mr. Chair, just to make sure we're all looking at the same.
Yeah, in line 71 and 72, yes. So it would be within existing budgetary resources available. Right. But again, I think the feeling on the fiscal note is that would not be a major concern for this kind of notice provision here.
So, Mr. Chair, if it's not a major concern from a fiscal point of view, then why are we including the opt-out if there are budgetary restraints? Because that kind of doesn't make sense to me. We need to do this. We need to inform people. And now we are saying, yes, we need to inform it, but we're going to do that only if our budget permits, knowing from what you just now said, it is not a major fiscal impact. That's a little confusing.
Yeah, and again, having the bill originate in another committee, I'll do my best. It might just be very careful drafting, but again, the fiscal note here, there is no fiscal note on this bill, so I have to assume that was put in there. Again, just to be careful as things work their way through the process. Maybe it was something someone caught as saying, let's put the clarifier in there in case there's an issue, but the expectation is that there would not be.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You had mentioned, and it obviously mentions that in the bill, that for a limited time, we are allowed certified pesticide applicators to apply the lawn care pesticides, and that will be following the IPM plan. So, as I understand that, from now to 2017, we would allow the certain pesticide applicators, as long as they are following the guidelines set by IPM, they could be used till 2017.
That is correct, until July 1, 2017.
And then, Mr. Chairman, what happens after 2017? Could these pesticides that have been approved by IPM and which we allowed them to be used till 2017, they cannot be used anymore after 2017?
Yes, that would be correct. And again, I would just point to looking at the definition section as well, which will make reference to the pesticides that are banned. You can find that in 22A. And I don't have the other site, but 22A is a listing of those prohibitions in another section of the statute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So these pesticides approved by IPM up to 2017, and then obviously we'll have to switch over to the non-pesticides if this bill were to move forward and to be passed. It is my assessment of that would be to switch over, and having talked to my towns, having talked to my municipalities and so on and so forth, of course it doesn't apply to them. I'm well aware of that. It doesn't apply to them. At this point in time, it does not. I'm not sure what's going to happen down the line. But right now it's only for all state-operated fields and parks and so on and so forth. But it has been told to me over and over again that the switching over is not inexpensive by any stretch of the imagination. And that's why I find it very difficult to say that if in 2017, when we switch from the so-called IPM products to the new products that we will have to use, we are mandated to use, that it will not be at a huge fiscal note to our state.
Yeah, and again, OFA, which is nonpartisan, all I can look at is if you look at page 5 of your packet, OFA, there's a footnote which talks about going to non-toxic free products under the IPM plan are available at similar costs to those containing pesticides. And there's a footnote to an EPA website which talks about pesticides and the cost. So although I can see there might be disagreement amongst the committee on that, OFA is based on that analysis by EPA, and I think that as the chair, that's what I would rely on for the cost impact.
So moving forward, Mr. Chair, if in 2017 IPM does have, as you know, IPM is constantly coming up with better and better solutions to make our fields, both state-owned and non-state-owned, as non-controversial and as safe as possible. We are well aware of the agenda. So if IPM, because we still have 2 years out, so in the process, if they come up with products that they feel can be used, would this bill in any way prevent that being used, even though it is the stamp of approval of IPM?
I think that all this bill would do is, again, I go back to that section, is that on state-operated parks, athletic fields, or playgrounds, after July 1, 2017, unless it's an emergency application, one cannot use pesticides as they, or does not involve, or lawn care pesticides, as those are defined in 22A47. So it is broadening that statutory section to include these facilities now.
Mr. Chairman, I want to begin. I should have said this earlier. I want to apologize for all my questions. I know this bill did not originate in our committee, and I know you got it just recently. I'm well aware of that. I apologize for that. But
there is no need to apologize. That's what we do. So the questions are appreciated. I'm doing the best that I can to answer them. So.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Because obviously this is a big concern, and this bill, as you're well aware of, has been talked about in the past in various forms. I mean, obviously now it's narrowed down to state properties, but it was in different forms in other committees. We've debated this bill back in public health, in education in the past. So this has been around the building for quite some time. And IPM has the task of coming up with safe products. That is their goal. And I'm a little, when they are, and obviously this is a changing field. What is applicable in 2015 is not going to be applicable in 2017, 2019, moving forward. So if IPM were to come with saying that these are non-toxic products, would there be any restrictions on them being used, given the list of what are the ones that can be safely used?
I think the answer to that, they are considered non-toxic. They would not be listed in 22A47 as a restricted use pesticide.
Just two quick comments, and maybe I want to see what you think about this. We have an IPM program. And the IPM program, as I understand it, comes up with their recommendations of what can and cannot be used. So what we are trying to do here, legislators that we are, limited experience that we have on all of these subject matters that range from A to Z and Z to A, that we are now requiring IPM to change their opinion or their products that they would come out with if they feel that what they have is adequate, is good enough. But if it does not fall within our criteria, we would be handcuffing IPM and telling them, yes, you are the science, you know what to do, but we in the legislature know better because we are legislators, and telling them what to do. So that's the part that I'm having difficulty with, where rather than leaving it in the hands of the professionals like we should in anything, this is just one example of the many other areas where we are involved. At the end of the day, there is a big, big difference between anecdotal evidence and scientific evidence. And, we all can have stories of this happened, that happened, so on and so forth. But that's anecdotal. But what IPM does, like any other institution will do, is sift the difference between science and anecdote and then come up with the recommendations. And that's the part that I'm having difficulty with. I can live with recommendations of IPM. If that's what they say, this is what we need to do, we need to do. They're experts, they're the professionals at that, as opposed to handcuffing them. And my final comment, Mr. Chair, it is my knowledge that we have requested professionals at Harvard Public Health, Dr. Liu, if I understand correctly, to come with recommendations before us, and that study, to the best of my knowledge, has not been. We have not laid our hands on that study yet. But it's just round the corner, and when we have experts in this field looking into the subject matter in depth and then advising us, would seem to me the right time for us to make the necessary action, whether it be state-owned property, as we said, or as Senator Kane said, in years from now, chipping at it little by little, including other properties as well. I would like to see science. I would like to see scientific evidence. And we have requested that. We are well aware, like we have done in public health in other areas. For example, we decided many years ago that when it comes to scope of practice, who are you and me to make those decisions? And let's go for scope review, and they come back to us. And then we act on that. So similarly, we have these requests out, and we are acting hastily, ahead of time, without getting all that information. Thank you, Mr. Chair.